Chris Carter here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. The Steelers lost in embarrassing fashion 26-7 to the Buffalo Bills. And now there are big questions to be asked. Are the problems too big for this Steelers team to solve? From Mike Tomlin to Aaron Rodgers to TJ Watt, we talked to all of them, and I give you my thoughts here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More on them later. Steelers fans, that was a very rough Sunday. The Steelers losing 26-7 to the Bills, dropping to 6-6, and are now back to being tied with the Ravens in the AFC North playoff picture. They, of course, played the Ravens twice, first of which in Baltimore this upcoming Sunday. But we're not going to look ahead too much. We're going to look at this game and what the Steelers are at right now and what is just completely wrong with this team and whether or not it's even fixable. The Steelers in this game clearly came out with a plan. They come out, they slow down the Bills, they hold them to just 3 points in the first half, and then Patrick Queen gets hurt, and then they commit some really bad turnovers, and the game flips on its head. Queen goes out before the end of the second quarter. The Steelers hold the Bills to a field goal, and then Aaron Rodgers gets sacked, fumbles the ball, it's recovered for a touchdown. Next drive, 2 plays, Mason Rudolph misses, I think it was 3 plays. They ran with Jaylen Warren. He gets 4 yards. Mason Rudolph skips a pass to DK Metcalf when he's wide open and then throws a ball in triple coverage that's intercepted. And then from there, the Bills just did whatever they wanted because the Steelers offense kind of left the Steelers defense out to dry. And then the defense just got run over and over and over and over. And I could say over about 12 more times because they got run over, the most rushing yards allowed in the history of Acrisure Stadium / Heinz Field. And it was embarrassing. And it's even more embarrassing when you look at how both sides got their butts handed to them in this game, in a game where, I mean, really, there's not much solace to be had with anyone in particular in this game. The run defense didn't work. I guess the pass defense deserves credit. Brandon Echols, I thought, played a good game. He had a third down stop. He had an interception, jumped the pass of Josh Allen. I mean, the Steelers held Josh Allen to 123 passing yards. Clearly that plan worked, but everything else didn't. And that's the problem with this team. And now they have the problems continue to mount when the offense was going earlier times in the year, the defense wasn't going. When the defense got it going, the offense, and just so many times, complementary football has not found its way for this team. And yet again, this is now the 4th time, and I correct myself now because when I asked Tomlin this question, as you'll see in a bit here, I thought it was the 3rd time, but it was the 4th time the Steelers have had a halftime lead and then lost it and lost the game after that this season. Now, granted, it's not like they were up by 20 or anything like that, or even 10, but still, there has been, I think, a major problem with the Steelers when they get punched in the mouth this year. And that's not something that you've seen typically out of Steelers teams, especially in the Tomlin era. Usually when they take a big hit, they punch right back. You look back throughout Mike Tomlin's career leading up to this season, I think if you looked over the past 5 years and over the entire Tomlin tenure, I think the Steelers would rank 6th in second half scoring differential leading up to this season. But this team in particular, for whatever reason, does not respond well when it gets hit with some big plays and big mistakes. And some of it, I think, is adjustments. Some of it, I think, is the fight that this team needs to have. And both of those do come back to Mike Tomlin at some point. Here was Mike Tomlin. We were asking him questions about that. And, of course, if you were watching the game or if you missed it, there were Fire Tomlin chants. For the first time in my all time of covering this team, I've never heard the Fire Tomlin chants. It actually happened in this game. The fans even booed Renegade. Nobody had ever heard of that before. So fans weren't happy. Listen to Mike Tomlin when we're asking him about those second half adjustments and his response to the fans' frustration.
Mike, is there anything that you can pinpoint or explain some of the second half issues you've had this season?
not putting together 60 minutes of action. Certainly, they're tangible things, things that you and I both see, but we better look at it hard, because it's usually something beneath the surface that's producing that, particularly in the consistency in which is occurring. That third quarter was awful. It was awful last week, and so we got to absorb the responsibility of that.
Mike, this is the third time you guys have led at halftime and then allowed another team to win. What do you guys as a coaching staff have to do better when other teams are adjusting to what you guys do?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. We didn't play a good half of football. We turned the ball over. It produced scores, and there's nothing mystical about that. It was really similar to last week.
What goes through your mind when there's a crowd chanting to fire you in your own stadium?
Man, I share their frustration tonight, man. We didn't do enough. And that's just the reality of it.
Throughout that entire press conference, I thought Mike Tomlin very much owned the loss, owned the situation the Steelers in, and owns the failures that have now compounded upon themselves, because this isn't just one time. Again, this is the fourth time the Steelers have led at halftime and then lost. I believe the others were the Seahawks game. I had this written down earlier. I apologize for not knowing all the four of these games. But this game, the Seahawks game, the Bears game last week, and I think it might have been the first Bengals game. They were up 10-6, I think, at one point. But I think that anyways, either way, it's happening too often. And I think sometimes there's adjustments, but sometimes it's also not responding well to when opportunity is right there for them, or when the other team gets a big play. I mean, we saw it in the Packers game. The Packers game is another one of those games where the Packers made a couple big plays in the second half, and it was just like all of a sudden the Steelers just had no ammunition to fight back with, and that is not a good sign for this team. They need to be able to roll with the punches, smile in the face of adversity, things that a lot of Mike Tomlin teams do over the years, but they're not doing it. And I thought it was interesting to look at that and think, like, man, like when I was looking at what they were doing, and I haven't had a chance to review all the tape, and we got to get the L22 footage and all that, but I saw plenty of opportunities out there for this team on offense and defense. And I mean, there's no one that escapes blame. TJ Watt whiffed on a sack on Josh Allen. So did Nick Herbig in this game. The run defense got obliterated. James Cook, 32 rushes for 144 yards. They had another runner with 9 for 62. Josh Allen, 8 for 38 and a touchdown. And then the offense, the run game against one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, 10 carries, 35 yards for Jaylen Warren. Gainwell, I mean, not bad, 5 for 20. It's a 4-yard average, but just nothing there. And then in the passing game, nothing there as well. Aaron Rodgers, 10 of 21 for 117. This is one of the worst offensive outputs the Steelers have had, and that's considering the Matt Canada era. And I thought it was interesting. I kind of wanted to push Aaron Rodgers a little bit, because he kind of started to talk about, he didn't like practice this week, and he felt like things were flat, and he felt like things needed to be more energy, more tempo. And so I'm like, well, is this about the coaches and how they set up the practices, or is this about the players not doing what they're supposed to do in practices? And I want you to listen to how he responded when I pressed him on that. Here's a little bit of the back and forth we had with Aaron Rodgers after the game.
Aaron, the inconsistencies that have been happening in this offense, does that stem from something that's not happening in the preparation? You talked about a lack of focus that happens sometimes during the week. Is that what the root of these problems are?
We'll look at it. I'm not sure. I thought we had a better preparation week and a poor practice week for whatever reason. I'm not sure if it was cold weather or what it was, but it wasn't our best week of practice. That doesn't always translate to a negative performance. There's been great practice weeks and bad performances, and poor practice weeks, great performances over 21 years of my career, but it wasn't the best practice week. So we got to practice in the elements better, and the execution again just wasn't where it was. I can give you a better answer on Wednesday, but let me look at the film first.
What happened in practice that tells you that it was a poor practice week?
It's a lot of things, kind of just a feeling. A lot of it's just the energy of practice, and the tempo. So we talked about it, and I thought Friday was better, but I thought, Thursday wasn't a great tempo execution practice for us on offense.
Do you see the flatness in the game and in practice as something that's not being done right from a coaching aspect or preparation aspect that's kind of framing you guys in the wrong way?
I know what you're trying to ask. I'm defense plus with the personnel groupings that we run, we're going to have a Monday to Saturday that we can be really proud of, our best Monday to Saturday, and go out and play our best game and take control of the division.
So you saw Aaron Rodgers very much push back against me saying that there. And listen, I think Aaron is trying to be a good teammate, a good player, a good leader, and say, like, I'm not going to go out and blame the coaches. I do think coaching is part of this. I think we'll get into Arthur Smith and some play calls. We'll go into some things about the defense in a little bit here. And we'll go into Mike Tomlin because, again, the whole idea of, I think, of what's made Mike Tomlin a great coach for his career. It's, again, Hall of Fame coach. He's going to be, I don't care how you feel about this loss or how you feel about him as a career. That man's getting a gold jacket when everything's said and done. But I think what's made him in his best years is his team's ability to fight back. If you remember the Broncos game, I think it was back in 2016, where he says, "Blink and I'll cut your eyelids off." There's been Steelers team after Steelers team that has fought back, even in the recent years, where when they started, 1-6 without T.J. Watt in 2022, they battled their way to 9-8. In 2023, when they got themselves off the mat, they were 7-7. They won 3 straight. They have found that thing that gets them going. And they've been able to find answers when they're knocked down, and they rise back up off the mat and get their way into the playoffs or get to a stronger finish. They don't let the season fall apart. And I just don't know if this team has that same chutzpah, fight, whatever you want to call it, charisma, to get it done this time around. And I feel like we've been here before, and I think they were there in 2013. Was an example where they were really down. They fought their way back after a really rough start. I think 2019, when Devlin Hodges was in, and they needed to fight tooth and nail to get to 8-8, and they did just that. I brought up 2022 when T.J. Watt missed half the season. That was a big one. 2023 when they had that late season stumble and they needed to win out to make the playoffs. They've done this so many times under Mike Tomlin. They fought back, and in a lot of these losses, you're not seeing that fight. And that, to me, does come back to this team, Mike Tomlin, needing to get this team to be able to play better, to fight harder, and to win those moments. Forget matchups for a second. Forget the schematics, because that's important, and we'll talk about that. But to me, that is the scariest part of this team if you're a Steelers fan and you want to see them compete. Even, again, we said this year wasn't a Super Bowl year, but to see them compete to get to the playoffs, to potentially win the division in a down year in the AFC North, and they're not doing that. I want to talk more about things that Aaron Rodgers said and things that T.J. Watt said that I think point to other issues with this team and what needs to be done if they're going to turn things around. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. With 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts with great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Alert for teams and matches make it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off when you sign up at Game Time. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here, and I want to continue on the point here about where the Steelers are and the fight issue, because Cam Hayward brought that up after the Packers loss. He's like, we need to see that fight, and we saw that fight in the games after that. They fought hard against the Colts, and that was a big win. I thought they fought hard against the Bengals. They dominated that game, and again, like there's clearly a plan for what the Steelers are trying to do in these games. They're just not finishing in so many of these contests now. In fact, again, they're 6-6. So it's not like they've doomed themselves to a losing season just yet. But if they're going to be able to fight their way and claw their way to a division title. They're probably going to need to sweep Baltimore or at least beat them once and then, win 2 other games outside of that. But to do that, they're going to need to get up off the mat. They're going to need to have to find answers, find things that they can be consistently good at. And that's the problem in this game. Again, we talked about it. No pass game, no run game, couldn't stop the run. The only thing you could say that the Steelers did in this game was that the secondary, I thought, covered well. They did that job. I mean, Josh Allen threw for 123 yards. If you had told me that, I would have thought, hey, the Steelers did something right in this game and maybe they pulled it out. But when you look at the offensive production, absolutely not. And I thought that there were a lot of things that were wrong with the offense. I still have to look at the all 22 to see just how bad things went for the run game. But it really seemed like to me, just from a live view without being able to cut up film and do things, I thought the Bills said, you know what? We know we're the worst run defense. So we're going to run blitz. We're going to attack the line of scrimmage. And we're going to say, beat us with your passing game. And in fact, the Steelers' only scoring drive, which by the way came off a turnover from the defense, it featured 5 pass plays and then a run from the 1-yard line. And to me, I think that says that the Bills came out and they said, we're going to sell out to stop the run, and we're going to dare you to beat us with the pass. And the Steelers just couldn't do it. And again, I don't think it's because guys can't get open, because guys were getting open. They're just not hitting them. And that's Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, because both of them came in this game and both of them had big mistakes. But I think sometimes it's not always just about the route getting open. It's getting open in the way that they practice, getting open in the way that it's designed to work with a certain play. And there was one, I believe it was a 2nd down in the 3rd quarter. It might have been in the 4th quarter when the Steelers are trying to mount their comeback and they're driving. And Aaron Rodgers just fires a pass down the middle of the field, and you see him pointing and yelling at someone. It looked like it was Jonnu Smith, who ran one way, the ball went another, and you could see Aaron Rodgers was frustrated about it. And I want you to listen to Aaron Rodgers talking about being in sync with receivers, what he says about film study, and what it says. And he kind of does call out Jonnu Smith here. Here was Aaron Rodgers after the game.
Like you and some of the receivers were off on some of the routes, the go ball to Roman, the one to Jonnu, where either the seemed he settled down. There were some scramble drills that seemed a little out of sync. How do you guys build that connection this part of the year? And how do you kind of go through that with your pass catchers, where it's saying, hey, maybe I saw this, you see this, iron those out over the last 5 minutes?
When there's film sessions, everybody shows up. And when I check to a route, do the right route, like John and I just were on the same page. I checked to his in-breaker and he ran outbreaker. John is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that. But I threw a ball I thought was going to get hit by the wind. It was 4 yards over Roman, so it's a shitty throw. I got to make that throw. We have our meetings every week. We have other opportunities outside of the facility, and look forward to seeing all the boys there.
So there you have Aaron Rodgers making it clear when asked what needs to happen different. He talked about showing up for film studies. He checks to an in-breaking route, and Jonnu Smith goes, has an out-breaking route. I think that's a clear shot at, like, hey, some people aren't putting in all the work, all the extracurricular work. And also in his interview, in the post-game podium, he talked about, needing to have a good, Monday to Saturday, meaning a good week of practice, and not just in your standard practices, but in all levels of your prep and doing the extra section. He talked about how the Steelers had an extra walkthrough for this game, and showing up for that and not being flat in practice. And to me, that is a sign that he is seeing certain things. He's not trying to point public fingers too much. I mean, he did clearly in this session here, but he's trying to rally guys to, like, hey, we have to be sharper. We have to be better. And this is where I think the Steelers do need to kind of buckle down. I think back in all those years that I mentioned, there was a circling of the wagons. There was a rallying cry where the team was able to stand up and make big plays and do what they needed to do to get to either get to the playoffs, avoid the losing season, or just rally so that the team did not completely unravel the way that a lot of teams do when things go against them in the NFL. And when I look at that, I think, man, like this is a chance for the Steelers to do that. You had chances in this game, and Aaron Rodgers, for the passes that he missed, there were also passes that Johnny Smith didn't run the right route on. There were also passes that he missed. There was one pass where it ricocheted off of Darnell Washington's shoulder pad, and it was an incomplete pass when he was open. But on that same play, DK Metcalf broke wide open over the middle on a crossing pattern. Similarly, it wasn't the same style of play that we talked about last week where Mason Rudolph didn't see him, but it was similar, just crossing the field, beats the man in front of him. Aaron Rodgers just doesn't give him a look. And it's not because they're not being told to. And Aaron Rodgers was asked, you guys told avoid the middle part of the field? He denies that entirely. He's like, absolutely not. And Aaron Rodgers also threw down the middle part of the field later in this game. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is sitting there being told by Arthur Smith saying, hey, you can't throw down the middle. And then he's like, okay, coach, I won't throw down the middle. I'm not Aaron Rodgers, a 4-time MVP who can do what he wants when he's throwing the ball. I don't think that's happening at all. I do think he's not seeing the field well. I do think that he's a bit what do you call it? Not scared, but like scattered when you see him, the sack that he took and how he takes his eyes off of being downfield to look around because he's worried about getting hit. Because, who can blame him? He's 41, about to be 42, and he's got a broke hand. He's got injuries, and he needs to protect himself. And it's similar to what Russell Wilson, I think, went through last year, similar to what old man Ben Roethlisberger went in his last 2 years. And I think that's the problem the Steelers came into this game with. They couldn't get that pass game going. And with the Bills selling out to stop the run, the Steelers O-line, especially without Broderick Jones, and by the way, it looks like he's out for the season, according to Jerry Dulac, my colleague at the Post-Gazette. But, if this offensive line, even with him, was not built to just run on defenses that were looking to stop the run that much. They can run the ball on teams when there's a balanced look. And I think that's what the Steelers have always tried to approach with Arthur Smith and how they've done this offense is hit you with the pass, hit you with the run, keep you guessing. And eventually, that cascading of successes just keeps building and just kind of overpowers you. And then eventually the Steelers can kind of dictate the pace of how they want to play the offense. But when a team takes one away effectively and you literally can't capitalize on it with your passing game, that's going to put you behind the 8 ball every single time. And I think that's another place where things were. I also thought it was interesting because Aaron Rodgers continued to call execution in this one. There was a play where even I was baffled. I'm not a person who blames everything on play calls all the time. In fact, I rarely do because I think that there's sometimes people don't understand it. But, there was a 3rd down and 9, I think, in the third quarter where the Steelers ran the ball to Kenneth Gainwell. And it got I think he got 7 yards or something like that, but it led to a punt and a 3 and out. And it put the defense back on after a score. And Aaron Rodgers, when I asked him about it, he said it was the design call, but he also said that it should have worked because the blocks should have been there. Listen to Aaron Rodgers when he was talking about this, because again, he's putting the emphasis on the execution and needing to follow through on what is there and essentially putting that on the players.
On the 3rd and 9 where you guys ran it to the right with Kenneth Gainwell, was that the called play or was that something that you guys checked into at the line of scrimmage?
That was called play.
As a quarterback, when you guys are down and you're in that down and distance, what did you see on that play to try to run the ball there instead of trying to attack downfield? On the 3rd and 9 where you guys ran it.
You want to start talking philosophical?
Just asking.
You want? It's 3rd and 9. They brought pressure off inside, so we checked. We had a run call, and we checked the blocking. They did it on the run, and we had a chance. If that thing hits, it says a goddamn thing. If we block on the front side, on the perimeter, literally everybody's blocked up. And we got to sustain those blocks on the outside. Kenny gets first down, and nobody says a damn thing.
Man, I got hit with a come on, man. You want to talk all philosophical and a long sip of whatever Perrier water that was the first time. The other question that I asked of Aaron Rodgers. He was not happy with my questions, but hey, I get it. Rough loss, and you're being pestered with questions. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand more of the things that didn't happen. Where does that come from? What went on to that? And and listen, I saw what he was talking about. Like the blocks, if they hold up, there's Kenneth Gainwell's still running. and certainly that's there. But I also feel like, at some point, there's times where you also need to be able to find success throwing the ball. And I don't think that this team found that except outside of 2 drives, really. One drive didn't end well. But I think it was their 4th drive of the game when they got the ball after Nick Herbig forced a fumble on James Cook. And they went 40 yards or 39 yards in 6 plays. 5 of them were passing plays where they basically moved the ball down to the 1, and then Jalen Warren ran it in for a touchdown. And then the next time came in the first drive of the 4th quarter where they went 10 plays, 57 yards, but they turned the ball over on downs at the 7-yard line because, again, they just weren't connecting in the pass game. But you saw some of the throws they did to Darnell Washington over the middle there. It seemed to work. There's things that I don't think that are sharp enough when it comes to this offense that should be, especially with the players that they have. I know that everyone brings up that they don't have a bona fide number 2 wide receiver, but the lack of use of Pat Freiermuth in this game, just truly baffling to me when you have the opportunity to use him as a receiving threat. No targets in this game. Roman Wilson only getting a target, and it was a miscommunication. It looked like Aaron Rodgers put the ball for him more on the sideline. Roman Wilson broke upfield. He was getting open, and DK Metcalf got open plenty in this game. The Steelers just aren't playing well right now. And it's both sides of the ball. We'll get to the defense more in the next segment here. I think Aaron Rodgers is right to assert that the players have to get things done in certain places. Because again, there's most times it's about execution. Most times that is what's going on, and that's what's kind of holding things back. But there's also times where I think that, people aren't put in the best position sometimes, like that 4th and 2 run on that drive that went 10 plays, 57 yards. They get 4th and 2 inside the 10, and they go shotgun, bring Spencer Anderson in. They basically show they're going to run the ball. And again, the Bills just overcommit to stopping the run. Steelers don't have the ability to counter that well, and it's a tackle for loss and a turnover on downs. And basically, the end of the game. And I think that was a play that they needed, that Arthur Smith needed to have another look in there. So I do think coaching is very much responsible for this, and we'll get to the coaching on the defensive side of the ball in a bit here. But again, it's finding that fight that the Steelers team, I think, really must do down the stretch here if they want to find things. This isn't just about this year. This is about also the other young guys on the team that you want to be part of your nucleus moving forward. This offensive line that you're hoping that can power through. The young defensive linemen, you're hoping you get Derek Harmon back. You're hoping Y.A. Black can grow from this. You hope that guys like Joey Porter Jr., who I actually thought had a decent game. Guys like Keanu Benton, who I think had a rough game. There's all sorts of young guys that you're trying to build with, and you need to be able to bounce back and find those resilient wins. And that's what this team really is going to need to change things up down the stretch. I think it's that resilience. It's something that they've had in years past, but they haven't had this year for a lot of their games. They've had it in some, but Aaron Rodgers touching on it there with what's going on. And again, talking about the players, talking about the execution, talking about those things. I think that's the right focus to have for a player. But this coaching staff needs to get these guys to be able to capitalize on those opportunities that they're drawing up for them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter who's open if you're never going to throw it to them. So a lot of things there. And the defense is not recused blame. They were pretty bad in this one as well, allowing the most rushing yards in the history of Acrisure Stadium and Heinz Field. I'll talk about the defense and show you what TJ Watt said after the game. Next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and it's all happening all at once. And while we're making all the choices that we need to make every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our discussion here after the Steelers' embarrassing 26-7 loss to the Bills on Sunday late afternoon. But again, I go back to this loss, and I see the fight being the problem here, and especially because, like, when we look at schematics, I thought a lot of the schematics for the Steelers made sense, especially early in this game. I think you saw the Bills pop off some runs, but the Steelers seem to be ready to be like, okay, you might get a run here or there, but situationally, we're going to force you into a few of these third and longs, and we're going to win enough of these so that you can't control the pace of the game with your offense. And in the first half, that worked. They held them to 3 points. They were able to keep things in control, even without the offense really doing much outside of one drive where the Steelers got them a turnover and they turned it into a touchdown. To me, this is where the Steelers, the Steelers defense is supposed to stand up and keep finding answers. And they didn't in this game, especially, in the run game. As the run game continued, granted, they did get worn down a bit, but you got to be able to find ways to win. You got to be able to find ways to get things done. And, it's a pointing at everybody. They got ran over up the middle. And again, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig up against backup tackles. They even had times they got the pressure. They just wouldn't bring down Josh Allen. And that's a rough piece. And again, I kind of think that the secondary might be a little exempt in this game. I think that Joey Porter played pretty well. That Brandon Echols played pretty well. Asante Samuel saw his first action. I thought Jalen Ramsey played pretty well. So like they did what they were supposed to do in the secondary, but when it came to stuffing the run, it was just non-existent. And to me, that is a big problem for this Steelers team, especially when you go back and look at a lot of those same duo runs where it's like, the power up in the middle, and and all of a sudden there's creases, and James Cook can run wherever he wants. He can choose where he wants to go. And that led to some just major problems the Steelers never found answers for. So I thought there were some big things there. And TJ Watt talked about the frustration of seeing that same play and saying, hey, we prepared for it. We knew that was coming, and we just couldn't stop it. And, they made several different adjustments. He'll even talk about it. He said, they made adjustments that they saw things, they prepared different ways to counter it, and it was just none of them worked. And there's a frustration in that. Here's TJ Watt at the Steelers podium after the game.
The play that the Bills kept running on you guys, was it something that you guys talked about going into this week, and what led to the lack of adjustments to counter it?
Absolutely. We knew that Ford was a hell of a runner. Number one and number two rushing offense in the National Football League. We knew he liked to bounce outside. We knew he was an elite running back. Weren't able to stop it tonight.
How much did that impact your ability to rush Allen and be a factor that way?
Significantly.
Did you feel like it was physicality, execution, assignments, where was the missteps when it came to the run?
We'll have to watch the film, but it was an ass kicking in all areas.
What do you guys have to do to get back to being that kind of a group the way you guys thought you could be?
I'm sure we'll discuss that plenty this week.
DJ, it seemed like they were running a lot of duo, right? You got bouncing Cook outside. What about that concept? The way they run it made it so hard, and is there anything you guys could have done to try to slow it down?
They were very effective. We tried many different things and weren't successful.
Anything else?
Do you feel like you guys have the answers inside the locker room to counter teams that want to run at you this way?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, like you say, it's not a tough run concept. I mean, it's something that we need to stop.
So there you have TJ Watt, just kind of being like, hey, we got the answers. We need to do it. And, saying that they prepared for it. It was nothing spectacular. It was just they got their butts handed to it, and that they tried several different things. I think this is the thing that often people don't realize, is that when people say, oh, they're not trying anything new, they often are. They're switching things around. That's not the criticism. The problem is they didn't find the right thing, and they got whooped. They got whooped up front, and that is not a good sign for this Steelers team that wanted to be tough up front against a lot of teams and win trench wars. And especially because next week you got the team that ran over you twice last year, and you got to beat them in their place. So I think the Steelers are in a position where they still have very much everything in front of them right now, but the defense, the pass rush isn't killing right now. The run defense isn't killing right now. And it seems like every time one group figures something out, another group loses it. And this time it was the secondary that I think figured things out. They were so much better in coverage. But then the run defense lets up and the pass rush doesn't get home. And it's just like it's one that keeps shifting from group to group. And then, offense wise, again, just not complimentary football when the defense was getting stops, needed to build a lead, need to give yourself a cushion. And they couldn't do that. And I think that's where, if I'm the Steelers, I look at it and I say, like, man, when we get these opportunities to be up, when we have these open wide receivers, when we have these leads, when we have these chances, we have to take advantage of them. We can't afford to just let those things slip by, because that can be the difference between winning and losing. And to me, that's where I think the Steelers team is right now, is that they are too often on that losing side right now, where, and again, they're 6-6. It's not that they have a losing season, but too many of their losses, I think, come from not being able to find that inner fight to win those moments and to figure out an answer when they're in tight spots and in tight situations. But I still think that this team has the chance to make a push here late, but they got to find answers, and they got to do. It's probably going to have to feel a lot like it did in 2023 and 2022, 2013, 2019, all those other years where they didn't bottom out and they fought their way through. I think that's what the Steelers are going to have to find a way to do coming up. They got that Ravens game in Baltimore this upcoming weekend. That's going to be big, and the Ravens will be coming off 10 days rest, just like the Bills did. But the Steelers they absolutely need to figure these things out now. Otherwise, this season will spiral out of control, and then things will only get worse from there. But still, plenty of things to cover about this loss. I want to talk more about the film when I get a chance to review it. We'll hopefully get the chance to do that today. I anticipate we'll get the chance to go into the Steelers locker room today, ask more questions. We'll see how that plays out there. But thanks again for tuning in for the Locked On Steelers podcast. Steelers fans, I know it sucks after a loss like that, but we try to get you the honest reviews here as far as what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and get you the talk that you need to get through your day. It's the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. My name is Christopher Carter. My handle is always at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those daily Monday through Friday episodes. We're back here tomorrow. After just talking to Steelers locker room, we'll go over our stars and skulls grades. I do anticipate it being a graveyard. Keep it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.